what we've got now is a local government approach, or a couple of examples of how local government are focusing on reducing drowning and promoting water safety. So what I'd like to do is introduce Nichole Edsall. Nichole is the Chief Operations Manager with Blacktown Council, and we've got Tony Blundell, Coordinator Business Support, Leisure Services, Lake Macquarie City Council. Welcome, Nichole. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's just do the same routine. How about you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Justin. So I work for Blacktown City Council. I've been with Blacktown for nearly 15 years. So my current role is Chief Operations Manager for key venues, which is a section of council. We have about 11 venues and 5 of them are aquatics based. So my involvement with drowning prevention has been motivated by attending the World Drowning Prevention Conference back in 2015. So at the time, a lot of the conference talk was about having strategies in place. So that was pretty much the driving force on when we started to develop our drowning prevention strategies within local government.
Fantastic. It's good to hear those conferences are well attended and have some impact. The conference was in Malaysia in 2015, and I think there might be a few Malaysians. So certainly there's a Singaporean on the webinar that may have been at that event, Danny. So Tony, would you like to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty new to local government. I've got an Air Force background, was with the Air Force for 15 years and was working out of uniform in the industry for a while, and then saw an advert for project manager smart beaches with Lake Macquarie Council, and so it's a pretty hard ad to turn away from, right? Be a project manager on the beach. So I inquired about that and applied and was successful, and was lucky enough to work on the Smart Beaches project with Lake Macquarie Council, and that really introduced me to local government efforts and the drowning prevention world, and it's amazing for me to be able to speak today in this group. So yeah, enjoying trying to use technology on the beaches to improve our water safety, but then also we've been looking at how we do that in our pools. It's great to have Nichole on here as well, because we've been looking at the Blacktown water safety strategy for how we might adopt that locally. And you know, I think we'll talk a bit today about collaboration amongst local governments. It's important to be doing things at a local level, but it's also important that we don't, you know, recreate the wheel, and where we can actually get ideas off each other. I think that's really the way forward. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Great. So we've got two leaders from a local government two local government areas with slightly different geographic boundaries and communities and perspectives. So that's why we've put you two together in this webinar. I guess, Nichole, not everyone on the call will understand Blacktown, but it's sort of metropolitan Sydney, outer western suburbs, quite a diverse community. And so tell us how you came to the drowning prevention strategy and what it's intended to achieve.
Yeah, so to give a bit of background on Blacktown area, our population is over 395,000. So we're one of the largest councils within New South Wales. And our population is made up of over 188 different birthplaces. So our main countries of origin are the Philippines, India, New Zealand, Fiji, and England. There's over 182 languages spoken within our population. So pretty much a lot of our strategy is ensuring that we adapt to the whole community. So how we came about our strategy is pretty much documenting what we do and also planning what we want to do for the future. So it's about having a committed approach to providing safe environments within our aquatic and leisure centres. And we're committed to doing that through preventable drowning strategic goals. So they're focused around education, advocacy and support. Building partnerships and network building is important. And obviously the environment and the technology becomes important as well.
So, oops, I keep
You're
going.
right.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
No, that's okay. Do you want to ask a question? Or
I
do you want...
was going to, so I guess operationally it's linking all of the assets and the operational infrastructure of council. Is that correct? And, but then also what was the councillor input into this particular strategy?
So we just need to make sure that our strategy links into council strategy, which is minimising the risk to within the community. So that's the overall linkage, and obviously providing safe community facilities. So some of the initiatives are asset driven, which Poseidon is our drowning detection system that we use at one of the facilities, whereas the other initiatives are more program based. So we just recently ran a PIPS Safe Summer campaign, which focused on educating the community on our water safety messaging, using a cartoon strip to get that message out. Our Aqua Learn to Swim program is about, teaching the water safety elements within our Learn to Swim program. And then we also tap into the areas that need it. So one of the main ones that we did at the moment was an adult-free program, because obviously that's the indicators and the ages that come out that are high risk. We also try to use our partnerships with Royal Life and use the Keep Watch campaign to educate the customers on active supervision, and that links into the Australian Water Safety Strategy on, the main risks are the lack of supervision and obviously educating the community. But I think for us, our biggest highlight has been we rolled out a life jacket initiative a couple of years ago, where we have 400 life jackets across our pools for free public use. And we do feel that initiative has actually assisted our pool rescue statistics. So we've seen a decrease in pool rescue statistics since we've implemented that initiative.
Wow. Okay. So a fairly comprehensive plan across multiple facilities within council and linking to the council strategy. So most councils would have their own organisational council-wide strategy. So it sounds like it's important to hook into those. Thank you. Let's go to Tony. Tony, smart beaches in your introduction was a key theme. Can you tell us a little bit about smart beaches?
Yeah, so Smart Beaches was funded through the federal government Smart Cities and Programs grant, and we actually partnered with Northern Beaches Council on that one as well. And the idea was to use technology to improve safety at the beach. And the key issue that we landed on addressing was really the application of council resources. So, councils, I think one of the problems we all face is, we've got limited resources, limited funding. There's only so much we can do with that. And so we're looking at how can we use technology to, we've got our lifeguards at the right place at the right time, particularly at the beaches. What we ended up with was a couple of pieces of key technology that we've been implementing and using. And firstly, it's using cameras to take photos on the beach to be able to estimate crowd numbers across every day of the year. And for us, that's a really key piece of information, because at the moment, we can get lifeguard estimates of crowd numbers on the beach, but that's only on the beaches where we have lifeguards and only during patrol times. So there's a big missing piece there around, are people staying longer in the evenings during summer? Are they visiting during winter? And some of those unpatrolled locations, particularly during COVID, where people are trying to spread out, how are those areas being visited? So it's very hard to start pitching business cases for additional lifeguard services and additional resources based on sort of intuition and gut feel. And so having this sort of information for us really helps build that business case for where we might need lifeguard services. The other bit of technology that's been really successful for us is some GPS trackers on our rescue equipment. And that takes a lot of the cognitive load off of our lifeguards, where they don't have to be remembering to get their stats done after a rescue or in between rescues, or remember exactly when things happened. We can collect that information in the background, and then we can annotate that afterwards. We've also got some trackers on our various signage, so the flags, beach closed signs, shark signs, and blue bottles, that allows us to track exactly when those signs went up and down throughout the day. And the idea is, into the future, we'll be able to communicate that information more broadly as well. So communicate that out to the public too, to say, hey, this beach is closed, or the shark sign's been there. The other thing we've really done through Smart Beaches and through our programs is trying to engage with researchers. So we've done a lot of work with the Beach Safety Research Group at UNSW. And the idea there is, well, we've got these various initiatives, but how effective are they? And what evidence do we have to sort of to back up, how are we going? And one of the difficulties at local government is we don't necessarily have those skill sets. And so if we're scrambling to try to understand how well things are performing, or gain those statistics, that can be a real challenge for us. But it's the sort of thing that research groups do as a matter of course. So partnering with researchers to give them interesting questions to solve, and they give us interesting answers to guide our future endeavours, really helps us with that allocation of resources. So yeah, it's been an interesting time, and there's still a lot to go.
Right, and you've mentioned the magic word there to many people on the webinar, data, and you've mentioned your research partnership, and I know there's some people here that are involved in that. But at the start, you mentioned a partnership with another council. So can you kind of give us a window in terms of how, and I'll bring Nichole in on this in a second, but how councils can work with other councils to solve problems?
Yeah, I think something we've spoken about a lot throughout this journey is around focusing on all the things we have in common. I think it's really easy to look at, well, we're a bit different to that council because of this, that, or the other, our demographics or our geography, or whatever it is. But we've got so much in common with what we're trying to achieve and the problems that we solve. And actually, COVID really brought this home for us. All of a sudden, everybody had a real common problem to solve, and we're all trying to solve it at exactly the same time. And so I actually had a silver lining for us, where we're able to reach out to other councils and discuss some of these issues and work out, well, how are we're all trying to solve the same thing. So how can we pull some resources to really move forward? Not having a local government background myself, it was interesting to see how split sometimes local government areas can be. But having been in it for a while now, you can see how that emerges, where you're responsible for your area and you're defined by a local government boundary. And it's really easy, with so many different problems going on and so many complex issues, to, it's hard enough to worry about your area without worrying about somebody else's. But my experience has been reaching out to those areas and focusing on what you have in common, and allowing the differences to kind of sit in the background, but focus on, okay, what do we have in common, and how can we work together, and how could we get this done a bit quicker and easier. And it's proven really successful. So you can sort of understand the discomfort at the start around that, but it's been great for us. We've been doing some work with other councils now as well on how we approach lifeguarding, and so yeah, it's been a really big benefit for us in applying some local strategies by reaching out to other councils. And like I said as well, we've been looking at the Blacktown pool strategy, water safety strategy, to include our pool stuff as well. So it's been really good for us.
Thanks, Tony. Let's go to Nichole. Nichole, Greater Western Sydney is huge, right? It's almost, well, it is a city in its own right, and it's the size of Brisbane in many respects, from Blacktown west of Sydney. So is there an opportunity, is it already happening for councils to unite and share lessons and work together to try and impact on water safety outcomes in Western Sydney?
Definitely food for thought. I do believe the councils work on a higher level, probably not at an aquatics level as such, but there's definitely an opportunity there to build those partnerships and collaborate, as Tony was saying. So yeah, probably something to look at for the future.
Okay, very good. And so you're part of your initiative is technology, and so Blacktown was one of the first councils in Australia to initiate the Poseidon system. Are there other areas where you're using technology to reach audiences or communicate with your community?
So a big part of our drowning prevention strategy is understanding the type of incidences and the impact that it has on our community. So the data analysis is quite important. So tracking all of our incidents and accidents becomes really important, and the type of incidents and accidents or pool rescues that are occurring becomes important. So we have a system in place to do that, and that allows us to analyse the data, and then obviously we'll assist in the future strategies, because we can adjust the strategies based on the type of incidences that we are having.
And Tony mentioned COVID. I'm just wondering, given your role with ARI New South Wales, and I know we've been in almost weekly calls through COVID last year, I'm just wondering, Tony's identified, and Paul Shannon also identified, a coastal impact of COVID. What are the COVID impacts on the aquatics industry?
So obviously COVID had a huge impact across the industry. For Blacktown, we had to close our venues, so reopening was exciting, and trying to build that business back is really important. So getting the trust from the community to come back has been the focus over the last couple of months. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, we don't end up back in that scenario where we do have to close the doors. But it did give us an opportunity to reset and to focus on the programs and the community information that we felt was important, and sometimes gets lost in the day-to-day operations. So even though it was horrible to go through that process, a reset and a reopen has been a good part of the process as well.
Yeah, look, I think it's been difficult, particularly in Victoria. Obviously, they've been closed and locked down far longer than in any other state. So I think we should be mindful of the COVID impacts on water safety going forward, not only in the coastal location, but also across the border population. There's potentially a generation of kids that have had their contact with swimming lessons broken as a consequence of those closures, and we're just not yet sure whether those kids will return to the pool at some point, notwithstanding the adults that we're using the local pool for its wonderful health social benefits. So thank you for that. And I just had another question for Tony before we move on. You mentioned lots of partnerships there. Can we reverse that and ask you the question about what we being either the Water Safety Council, those organisations whose core purpose is water safety, drowning prevention, perhaps the academics in the room, what do we need to do in order to orientate ourselves to the opportunity of local governments being more engaged in water safety and water safety outcomes?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I don't know if I've got potentially the experience in local government to be able to answer that really well. But with the experience I have had, I think local government does need to be more open to reaching out to solve problems collaboratively, rather than just being focused on their own area. I think, and so I guess what I've seen potentially in some areas is local governments can feel like things are being done to them rather than with them, and that initiatives come out, changes are made, or things are happening, and local government wasn't necessarily able to be involved in the development of that. And so now it's like, okay, well, this has happened, but we have to now implement a lot of it at our local level, or we're responsible at our local implementing it. So I guess the more that we can do it with local governments and with those partnerships, rather than doing it and then presenting it to them, the better. And local government, I think, has definitely got a role to play on that space to say, well, it's very difficult to engage with every single individual local government entity when you're trying to do something on a state or a national level. So, the more that we can collaborate and partner to provide united fronts across local government areas, the better we can engage with these larger issues to be able to implement them at a local level. So I guess it's trying as much as possible to do things with each other rather than to each other.
To each other, yeah. Okay, good point. Nichole, have you got a view on what we need to do to be more effective in working with local government?
I think it's just the communication's important, and having those connections within each local government becomes important as well. Finding out what each local government's, particularly within the aquatics venues, what their pain points are, and how this can assist, it becomes really important.
Thank you. Listen, thank you to both. Thanks, Tony, and thanks, Nichole. That's been really interesting and really informative. Congratulations on your individual initiatives, and congratulations on I guess you've sort of opened up to have a talk amongst yourselves about how you can perhaps collaboratively work as across council. So thank you very much. We're going to move on now, but have a good day. Enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you, Nichole.